There she is now. I don't know, I need to look into that.
We sent out obstruction of vegetation letters to about 65 residents, and so in case somebody shows up to council. And so we sent this until they had till the 7th to correct it, otherwise we go out and take care of it
How long ago?
right now.
Oh, perfect. Then I think we're still fine.
Okay.
All right, need this real quick. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Graham. It is Monday, November 19th, 2018. It is 7:01. Sorry for the late start. This evening, thank you for everyone coming out this evening to recognize Mr. Dennis Ripp for his 40 years of service. Let's give him a round of applause real quick. We've got a little bit more here in just a few moments, but let's go ahead and get things started here with the Pledge of Allegiance. If I can get you all to silence your cell phones and stand up for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'll get you one here back in just a minute. Mrs. Ripp, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Graham?
Here.
Councilmember Rounds?
Here.
Councilmember Plaza?
Here.
Councilmember Chapman?
Here.
Councilmember Hubbard? Here. Councilmember Fredericks?
Here.
Councilmember Benjamin?
Here.
Everyone's here and accounted for. I'll be the mayor. This evening, we have a special presentation. I'm going to call Ms. Coleman up to the podium here and recognize Mr. Ripp for us, please.
Oh,
And then I'll step
I
forward.
recognize him, he's right there.
Oh, goodness. Woo.
I don't have a card I should be dealt with.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I should have turned that around for you. Sorry. I'll let you do
Here,
that.
I can do it.
I'll let you. Okay.
me
Watch
do it?
the bottom.
Baby steps. Come on, Dennis.
Come on up, Dennis. Come on down. The next contestant on the City of Woodland.
First, we need to take your temperature because you've been here for so long. You okay?
Yeah, we're
All right. All right. All right. So I found it was funny, when I started here at the city, there was this picture hanging on the wall. What year is this picture from?
I think 78.
1978. Everybody see this picture?
We actually took that picture.
Still in black and
Oh,
white,
I've
huh?
seen it.
for
Yes.
Dave Crone because he was retired.
Yes.
See? So on this picture, this person right here is Dennis Ripp. I'm like, wow. So then I saw this other picture in here, and it's an identical picture. But it was, how many years later? This is 2014.
Yeah.
So this is in 78 and this is 2014. And what they did is they took an identical picture and Dennis is in the same position. Like, who does that?
All the guys go. We kind of took that picture because we wanted to show the mayor that we had the same exact size.
So that's a great point. We had the same amount of employees that we had back then. Hint, hint.
God.
So we need more employees. Okay, so that was a great point. But anyway,
I will take it all the way.
so I'm Dennis's 17th director,
Yeah, I think so.
and Dennis served as the interim director for
Four
Public
times.
Works 4 times.
4 times.
So he has me beat by 3,
Yeah.
and I don't know how many years. Well,
What's
39 years.
Yeah, what's interesting is I think I added it up. It's like 2 years worth or something. We've had directors that only lasted 6 months, so we're still ahead of a couple.
Yeah, you're not gonna take it. So
I hope not.
yeah, well, and 16 directors of those, one of the directors was here for 11 years.
Yeah.
So the last few years have been hearty for you.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I'm very appreciative because I remember when I was hired, part of the interviewing process was Dennis gave all the candidates a tour of the city, and then you actually went into the interview room where they interviewed you. But I remember standing out here, and I'm going to give away a little secret here.
Whoa,
Dennis
whoa.
Dennis doesn't know this. So Dennis was out here talking to one of the candidates. And I'm overhearing what the candidate said, which proved to be very valuable information when I went into my interview because I was very well prepared. So, but I thank you for that. Thank you very much because I'm here now. So, my sincere appreciation for that. But also, when he took me out to go around the city, I also remember that we started talking about cars. And I thought, oh, somebody likes cars. Great, I have an instant connection. And he likes military vehicles. I like more muscle vehicles, but that's okay.
So we have a couple of them.
Yeah. So I thought I can get along with this guy. This will be a good working relationship. So I'm very, very honored to work with you and somebody who has so much experience in the city and is willing to go through 16 directors and still do what I ask you to do, even though you're rolling your eyes like, oh, here's another person asking me to do this. But he does it, and he smiles about it, and he's kind, and he really has the heart of the city in mind when he does that. And there's not a lot of people nowadays that work for cities that will do that. It's all about them, and it's all about what they can get from a city. And Dennis isn't like that. Dennis has a true concern for Woodland, and I'm very appreciative of that. So I thank you very much. So
Don't go anywhere, Dennis.
All right.
And I wore jeans tonight in representation of Public Works.
I wore tennis shoes.
Are you taking these with you?
Yes, I was
Okay.
going to.
I'll give these away. See, I'm back there itching. You're up here talking. I'm like, no, I want to talk, right? Yeah, I know, right? Thank you very much. Keep up the work, and we're going to see number 19 come through the door here. I'm just kidding. I was kidding. You still going to be around?
I did have to say something, and I think Dennis will back me up. Dennis said that if I leave, he leaves.
I just had to say it in an open meeting.
So Dennis and I work very well together.
Well, yeah, I'm the new guy, so I don't know how many. If you've been through this is number 17 director. I don't know what mayor I am. Definitely the youngest.
Yeah. It's close.
There's been a few. Yeah. Well, we appreciate all your hard work that you have put into the city over the last 40 years. One thing that I can say about you, Dennis, is that not only do you work for the city, but you also advocate for the city as well through community service and just being a good citizen to all of us. So, and that's something that I think is really important to recognize as well. You come to work every day and you do a wonderful job for us, but then even at night you're out there and still giving back, even though you don't have to. So we appreciate that very much. I do have a little something for you this evening. I got a couple of things for you this evening, but I've got a nice plaque here. And thank you to the Clerk Treasurer's Office this evening for the reception and all the hard work that always goes into those. Dennis Ripp, in appreciation of your 40 years of service to the City of Woodland, 1978 to 2018. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Absolutely. Very special.
Show your teeth. Show your teeth.
There we go. One more in the back. How many more we got? All right, I got one more thing for you here. I got more.
That's cool.
Oh, I didn't bring a pen. Dang it, I didn't bring one of my famous mayor pens. And we also, did you know about this?
No.
Oh, well, it's a wonderful jacket for you to proudly wear while you're out working here. And we've got your name on there.
Take it out of the bag.
Oh, take it out of the bag. All right. Well, I wasn't sure if I was supposed to touch it or not.
you gotta
So,
touch it.
okay. It was in the bag. It's a sweatshirt. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Thank you.
You bet. Well, this one here was all Tracy. I'm just going to take the credit for it, though. That's what I do.
Dennis wears sweatshirts all the time, and that is a nice
It
Carhartt,
is
rain
nice.
resistant, etc.
Yes.
So.
Let's give Dennis a round of applause, please. Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. How many council members have you been through?
Started with 5.
Do you want to sing?
All right. I guess the only thing I want to say is I've had a good time working for the city. They say that if you do something, we've had some fun mayors in the past, but not like
Not
Will.
this kind of fun.
Not this kind. Exactly. I was trying to think of how to say that. And he went over there and he picked up a book because they have a log for each year. They had them on the shelf, and he went to see what. Anyway, thank you guys for everything.
Thanks, Dennis. All right, clear the room. I know what's going on. Oh, I love these evenings. And I kind of told a fib about my jeans too. I can't lie. I snuck out before she said, "What are you wearing?" So don't tell on me. I don't think she noticed. She was too busy dealing with the children this evening. All right. I'm in big trouble now. All right, moving on to citizen communication for items not on the agenda. I have no one listed this evening, but if there's anyone in the audience who would like to step forward now and leave some feedback, we will give you that opportunity now. All right, seeing no one, moving on to items on the agenda. Seeing no one has signed up, anyone in the gallery who would like to step forward for items on the agenda, now is your opportunity to step forward and leave comment. All right, seeing no one, moving on to the portion of the agenda for approval.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Humberg, seconded by Councilmember Rounds. Will the clerk please take the vote?
Councilmember Chapman?
Aye.
Councilmember Benjamin?
Aye.
Councilmember Humbert? Aye. Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks?
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds?
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza?
Aye.
All right, the agenda has been approved. It is 7:13. We'll be moving out of regular session into a public hearing. 2019 final budget. Notice of filing of preliminary budget and public hearing. This is your opportunity to step forward to speak to the 2019 final budget. There we go. It's 7:14. We're out of public hearing, moving back into regular session. Reports of City Council. Mrs. Rounds.
Yes, I had the pleasure, and several of us had the pleasure of attending after hours for Chamber
Yes.
Last Thursday, which was at Crow Moon, and it turned out, it was a very lovely after hours. They did a very nice job. So lots of people turned out, so it turned out really nice.
Anyone else? Mrs. Graham.
I will add to that, we had the Crow Moon, but she also has a gift boutique. Pearl and Branch is adjoined. A lovely place to shop if you all need Christmas presents. It's a good place to go. We had attended the Veterans Day ceremony. There was a very nice trooper that spoke. He had a good message for everybody.
I heard he was super handsome.
And it's all about
I didn't hear that, but he was really good speaker.
yeah, all about the uniforms anyway.
I don't feel
And
safe.
I participated in, volunteered some of my baked goods for the Ladies of the Moose for their auction, the fundraiser to do their activities on Saturday. And Saturday night, it was also the infamous Turkey Bingo Night for the city. It's an event that starts everybody's holidays out, and the room is always packed, and it's a lot of fun. So hope everybody can go next year. And I noticed that on December the 1st, the Ladies of the Moose and the Moose Lodge are going to be doing the tree lighting ceremony at Hoffman Plaza.
What was the
The first.
The first.
Saturday the 1st. And also at that event, the new theme for the 2019 Planters Day will be announced.
Ms. Woodland will turn on the lights on the
And
Christmas tree.
that's right. That's all.
Awesome. Thank you. Ms. Humberg.
I would like to go back to the Veterans Memorial Service, and I gave you a bad time about not being handsome, but you had probably one of the most touching speeches that I've heard, and I've been to lots and lots of these, and all of the members of the VFW were beyond words of how wonderful it was, and how much they appreciate your time and effort, and I still would like to.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Mr. Chapman.
This Saturday, I was able to enjoy a ride-along with one of our officers and see how they their activities, what they do and stuff. And it was very interesting, especially at the quiet very end when we were doing a Hanson Motel check and officer unlocked the door, kicked it open, and heard a screech, and he'd yelling police, and I'm like, oh. So it got real interesting. It was good. It was a good night. I could see see our officers in force and everything, and that was very, very exciting.
Awesome. Very good. All right. Didn't know you did that. Good for you. It's a good one. Anyone else? Mr. Fredericks.
Big shout out to Safeway and all the folks that gave. I think they raised over $15,000 for the Woodland Action Center, so that was very, very cool. Of having a company help our local charity, I thought that was really cool.
So they were able to purchase all the turkeys they needed for the families.
Yes, Miss Woodland sat at that front table and was hustling. She did good. She hustled me, as always. Yes, wonderful community partner. Absolutely. Anyone else? Mrs. Rounds.
We passed out the families to the Rotarians today for the Christmas giving that we always do, and I think the trees are going up when, Janice, do you know? Is it tomorrow?
I think they're available tomorrow.
Yes, and which will probably serve about 90 families this year, so
Good.
anybody that wants to donate, take a name off the tree or get hold of Rotary. We take cash donations also to help with purchasing. We do a dinner for them, and then we buy for the kids. We figure the dinner's good enough for the adults, but we make sure that all the kids are taken care of in the family. So
And those are all local families.
all local families.
And what about, I saw an email that came out, as a fellow Rotarian, had to get that in there. But there was a pickup of goods, was that today or yesterday?
That was today.
Okay,
for the
how
food
did-
bank, for
how
the
did that
food
go?
drive. I went to help, but Lineage had sent over
Okay.
4 people to help, so they didn't need
Oh,
us
good.
to help load, so
Okay.
I'm not sure how much they collected.
Okay.
But normally, the Rotarians usually furnish, it's kind of a little competition, and they'll furnish ice cream or whatever to the winning class of whoever
Oh, there was a
collected the
competition?
most. Of course.
Dang it. I'm always good for a good competition. So we don't know who won yet.
We don't know who
Well,
won.
maybe we should have that party on a Wednesday.
Maybe.
And I could stop by.
Right. Well, maybe we should.
You know what?
Yeah,
We
we
should.
could.
It's done.
Yeah.
Keep me posted.
Okay.
All
will
right.
do.
Thank you very much. And thank you to all the folks out there in the community that contributed to that, because it looked like by the list there was a lot of stops that they were making along the way to gather up all those items. So that's awesome. You always do a wonderful. That's what community is. Taking care of one another. Absolutely. All right. Anyone else? All right. Reports of Standing Committee, Finance and General Government. Mr. Fredericks.
We met on November 13th at 5:30. We reviewed the October 2018 financial summary for the city. We reviewed the gambling activity report and had a discussion on the 2019 tax rate, which we also had a discussion at our last workshop. We reviewed our debt summary and amortization schedules associated with debt in the city. We talked about those last week as well. We reviewed one or two utility adjustments, can't remember on the total number. And then we talked about the property tax distribution, which we also talked about at our workshop. And the Propel insurance renewal. The city's insurance renewal is set for action, I believe, this evening, if memory serves me correct. Nope, memory doesn't serve me correct.
December.
Right. That is correct. The ordinance number 1420, I have my numbers mixed up here. Ordinance number 1420, which is the property tax levy 101%, is on here, and the Propel insurance will be set for action at December 3rd. We also reviewed ordinance number 1423, which is not on tonight's agenda. What will be coming forward on the December 3rd agenda, which is your business license model threshold ordinance. Old business that we discussed, which was ordinance number 1148, which is sales tax distribution as it relates to this year's and next year's budget. I believe the committee made a recommendation to leave it as is. And so we will not have any further action on that. Is that correct? Correct. Okay. And then that is it. We are scheduled to meet next on December 10th at 5:30 at City Hall.
Questions for Mr. Fredericks? All right, thank you, Mr. Fredericks. All right, moving on to reports of city officers. Was it last week or the week before, or last regular meeting, we talked about January 12th or 23rd, and I asked that everyone please step forward to see what dates would work for you to set a workshop for council. Is there any conflicts with the 12th of January? Are there any conflicts with the 23rd of February?
I'll be back then.
I think that's why we went with the 23rd.
Yeah, I think I'll be back, pretty sure.
I can definitely be here for the 12th
Okay.
of January. I have doubts. I don't know for sure if I can be here on the 23rd.
Perfect, the 23rd that it is.
Okay. Should be, I'll tell you this. It should be a fairly quick meeting then.
Yeah, I think I get back on the 22nd.
Okay, so you'll be there for the 23rd, just not Mr. Fredericks. I'm kidding. So without objection, I'd like to set the date for January 12th. All right, council retreat, January 12th, details to follow. Make sure I get... Oh, my things are just off. I was trying to figure out what the heck was going on there. Can I get a chamber report from Mrs. Graham or Mrs. Rounds?
The chamber, we had our chamber retreat, and with the new board for this year, discussed a lot of things. Had everybody just went around, and I think our new chamber board this year is bringing a lot to the table for chamber as far as ideas, talents, interests, and looking forward to having a meeting with you.
Okay, perfect.
And we're ongoing, and we're preparing for our, of course, our Christmas auction and then the installation banquet in January.
Which is on
The 6th.
The 6th. That's not on here either.
Up at the golf course.
So the 6th. Okay. What was I going to ask? When does Miss Urban take over?
The 1st.
The 1st of January?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm trying to set a date with Miss Rodman then on when I can come in, and we've been speaking. So look forward to that. I'll be making an appearance at some point. Set priorities for the workshop. Priorities December 3rd. I don't remember why this is on there. We'll come back to that because it will hit me. I can't remember. Chamber After Hours was awesome. Thank you for bringing that up. I know it feels like we just met yesterday. It's only been a week, but that was a workshop. So I tend to see you folks out and about all the time, which is wonderful. It's great to see you out in the community and attending events. Let's see if I can read my handwriting here. Oh, basketball's about to start. I believe it starts this Saturday with our first home game. With the boys, at least. I know that much.
Do you think the priorities for the 3rd and the 17th was dealing with the chamber exec officers?
It might have been.
Because you said so in that meeting in December.
Did I?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Probably. I don't remember. My memory's, I'm losing my memory.
Well, and then you have city action days are coming up.
Yes.
13th and 14th of February, so we were trying to get the other.
Then other entities with their list, and then maybe. Oh, we were going to set a workshop. Okay. Yes. Okay. More to come on that. More to come. We're going to set a workshop on that once I get the priorities back from the other entities, and then we're good. Okay. There we go. Knew I'd get there. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Graham. So basketball's going to start here pretty soon. I know practice over at the high school's already started, so very excited about that. And also the middle school. Obviously, we'll have some teams going. I'm not sure when their season starts, but
It's already started.
It's already started. Okay.
For the girls.
Over at the middle school.
Uh-huh.
Do you know when the first basketball game is for the girls' high school?
This Saturday, there will be usually there is a Thanksgiving
No, the boys are playing.
tournament on
Oh.
Saturday, but I don't know the details.
Okay, gotcha.
Unfortunately.
encourage all of you to go out and at least catch one or two games. They have multiple games here in town. They're very fun to attend. Sometimes Mr. Frederick gets a little out of control and is asked to leave.
Especially when Mr. Kelly's reffing.
Oh, yes. The chief has been known to be out on the court. I think when I saw him out there the first time, I believe I did threaten him. Call a clean game for Woodland.
Yes, he does.
Yes, he's also been seen out on the football fields as well. Right. And in fact, would you like to share some news that you shared with me earlier today, or did you want to keep that under wraps?
It's not important.
Okay, got it.
Please do share.
Thank you, Mr. Frederick.
Yeah, got my curiosity up
Do I
there.
have to?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's good stuff.
I'm doing a state semifinal in football this year. So Saturday, I got to go to Bothell
Awesome.
for Lake Stevens versus Woodinville. Semifinal goes to state.
Yeah.
So
He's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
just ask me.
Thank you for sharing.
Yes.
I can't believe the spontaneous.
Thank you for forcing me to share.
You're welcome. I think it's good stuff. It's important. You're out there, even though you're wearing a different uniform, you're still representing all of us. So thank you very much. Veterans Day was wonderful. I attended the ceremony down at the plaza. I look forward to seeing the memorial moved across the street, which I know is being worked on. Always a wonderful event. I was very thankful that I was included this year. So thank you. And then the reception afterwards is always fun. Got to have lots of conversation. Mrs. Graham was there. Mrs. Johnson was there. It was nice just having a visit with Mrs. Johnson and Mr. Johnson as well. So Mr. Burke was there. It was all good stuff. It was fun. It was always wonderful, and I appreciate all that they do. Yeah. I know. You said you were there. Oh. We didn't visit though. Did we visit at the reception? For a minute? Yeah, I tried. I actually stopped by on my way here this evening. I saw the boys in there, and I saw the light was on, so I pulled around and popped in. They didn't kick me out.
Say they buy you beer?
No, they didn't. I didn't have time. But I told them I wasn't a member, so they just kind of looked at me and said, thanks for stopping and go see the Cub Scouts down the hall. So I did. This is really exciting. So Saturday I was called up to the big show when we talked about coaching. The Woodland Girls indoor soccer team was without their coach on Saturday. So myself and another father within the community, we reffed 2 games in the indoor soccer. We had no idea what the rules were. It was awesome. So it was back to back. We're 1-1, although it's not a perfect record such as yours with volleyball. But I'm hoping to redeem myself. It was quite interesting. I don't know that the girls knew what to do with me. I think at one point I yelled, "Do you want to be here? Then act like it." Worst coach in the whole world.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Anyway, questions for me. I've got a competitive streak. That's all. Yeah.
So you didn't know what the rules were.
I knew partially what the word. It was different than being outside because they were playing off the walls and there was nets and I
Very
was
similar to these meetings.
Yes, pretty much. At one point, I noticed that in the first game we were up by over 5, and I counted the players on the other team, and I started yelling at the ref, "Hey, they've got one more than us!" And he said, "I know." I said, "They're not supposed to have one more than us." Said, "Well, you're up by 5. They get to put another player." I'm like, "Oh, I'll be quiet." Listen, it's a win's a win. All right, Mr. Boyce.
Okay, start to follow.
Yes, sorry.
Okay, got a few things. Just a reminder that we'll be negotiating with both Teamsters unions on the 27th, so that's coming up. Also, I believe we're to the point where we'll have an animal control contract with the Humane Society before the Finance Committee and then finally to City Council. So that is coming. And then with regard to the budget ordinance this evening, unfortunately I was out of the office unexpectedly last week, but I know we have 2 city councilors that may have a conflict on the hotel motel classification. So I may need to work with Mr. Randolph here to figure out procedurally how we can hopefully pull that portion of the budget out so Councilor Rounds and Graham can vote on the majority of the budget. The reason for the conflict is that they both sit on the Chamber of Commerce board, and some of that money goes to the chamber. So,
Brad, you just can't vote, you can't speak on it
so
And-
procedurally, we may,
And for my doing too, I'm also on the vice president of the Planners Day Committee, which also is in that
hotel motel.
hotel tax.
but for a different matter, right? So are we losing three representatives?
She's a
Okay.
No, she's
Oh,
just-
I'm sorry.
I said
but-
as a board.
But I think if we pull out the hotel motel
Right.
portion of the budget, the two members can exclude themselves from that vote and then vote on the remainder of the budget. Procedurally, we may have to talk about how that happens.
I would say just withdraw that one line item from the budget and then vote on that budget without it, where everyone can participate, and then vote on that item.
Okay, just wanted to make everyone aware.
So the-
And,
So then in a proper motion then to approve approving the 2019 budget with the exception of the distribution of Fund 107. Got it.
That sounds great.
Do we have to have a separate ordinance for Fund 107?
And then, Mr. Randolph, if I may, then it would be appropriate right afterwards to make a motion to then adopt that
The 107?
107, insert that back into the budget with a separate motion, but those two council members would need to abstain.
I think that shows a public trail that the people that weren't supposed to vote, weren't supposed to comment, did it on that part. And
Yep.
of course, don't talk about it otherwise, we can make a decision other than 107. But I think that established a record, we should be fine.
And they can fully speak as to the budget with.
Correct.
Okay.
Just they can't comment on that item.
Got it.
all right. Other than that, well, I should note that Mr. Burke from the chamber came in about 3:30 this afternoon and asked me to speak tomorrow at the chamber. So I will be there speaking to the chamber and
I was supposed to call you this morning.
so anyway, I will
That
be
just
there
jogged.
if
God, I'm
anyone
starting to
else is
see
there.
a trend here.
We'll
Good
see
Lord,
you
I
there.
need an assistant, is what I need.
So that's okay. So I told him that he's okay if I wing it. I will definitely do it. So I'll be there tomorrow.
I'm sorry, Mr. Boyce. I should have
No,
gave you a
that's
heads up.
That's fine.
Oh, there's something else I'm supposed to ask you. I'm kidding. I'm
You know
kidding.
what, fine.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
All right, so upcoming community events, we need to add on the December 1st tree lighting. We'll definitely do that. December 3rd, open house for the expansion of the urban growth boundary and update to the comp plan, 1 to 6 p.m. here in council chambers. I believe there was also an open house today. Some property owners in the area came in, so that was good.
Okay.
December 4th, December 6th, the County Town Hall, Part 3 at Woodland High School at 5:30 p.m. December 11th, Downtown Woodland Revitalization, 9 a.m. at the Grange. December 20th, the Planning Commission is holding a public hearing regarding the comp plan amendment and growth scenario at 7 p.m. January 19th, Chamber Installation Banquet at Keithman Lodge. February 13th, the FBRL fundraiser auction at the Red Barn. And February 13th through the 14th, City Action Days. So that's what I have this evening.
And I have one more event to add. Council received an email from me this evening. On December 7th, I will be hosting a cocktail reception for the holidays at the Bond Estate off Lewis River Road. Tickets will be $30 a piece. I hope you folks can join us. The money raised will support the 2021 drug and alcohol-free grad party. So check your emails.
December what?
7th. It's a Friday evening from 6 to 9. Yes. Questions for Mr. Boyce? Okay. Welcome back, by the way. And I know that we're kind of out of order with the meeting, but Ms. Coleman wanted to address council this evening with the Horseshoe Lake Management report. So if you could give that to council?
Actually, it was, council asked
Oh.
previously about, suggested for Public Works to take to the Park Committee and the Horseshoe Lake Committee ideas for suggested revenue, because those were some topics. So we took that to the committees, and I included that in your council packets for tonight of the ideas that they suggested for revenue. I just wanted to go over it with you real quick so you had an update on that. Basically, they suggested 9 items, which was anywhere from items that had to do with the Planters Day Carnival, which the fire department does that revenue, but maybe adding to that, Planters Day Carnival, voluntary contributions, some different events maybe throughout the parks, vending system, maybe in the parks, revenue, food truck vendors, a larger percentage for events that we have in the park, movies at the park to include maybe food trucks where we get the vendor cost for that, a raffle that went towards Planters Day, possibly adding a raffle in Planters Day. I'm just telling you what they brought up. And then Christmas tree lighting, maybe they can do something there, maybe sell hot cocoa there or something to raise money for the parks as well. But one of the items I wanted to do is suggest one, I think the biggest revenue stream here is not only charging more for events, but the food truck vendors. And so I contacted a few of the different cities around our area, Vancouver, Longview, etc. And I found out that they charge a pretty good fee to have food truck vendors in their parks, and it does bring them in some revenue. They're also going to start having smaller bands that come in before movies, so I'd like to present this more when you guys are talking about revenue and give you some more ideas on that and the dollars that are associated with that. But I just wanted to give you an idea of what they had come up with. But they by no means said that they do they want to charge any park admission fees. So for anybody to come use the park, a day fee, they don't want any of that to occur. But I just want to give you a heads up of what they had come up with on that. And then also, the Northwest Steelheaders contacted me and wanted to make sure council knew that they contributed to the park cleanup, because now it's kind of dying down due to the weather, and vegetation is kind of going into a dormant stage. So for Garrick Park, they had 20 park cleanups, and with that they had 206 volunteers. 22 different chapter members did that volunteer. This is on top of what we've done. They also donated weed eaters, chainsaws, mowers, tractors, trailers, and numerous hand tools of their own time into the park. And then they also had 100 yards of rock, 100 feet of fencing, garbage cans, 2 trees, and a big, huge stone bench that they dedicated to that park. So I just want to let you know that that partnership that we have with them is going very well. And we're probably going to contact the kayak groups that have been using that park this year and see if they can start contributing and donating time as well. It's been pretty tough keeping up with graffiti, but I think we've done a pretty good job of that. So just kind of give you an idea on that. And then also I handed out to you tonight, just in case you guys receive comments from citizens as you're out and about. I wanted you to know that we talked about the Hawthorne House came in and requested a sidewalk there on Columbia Street. We said we'd research and get back to them.
Crosswalk.
That's what I said.
Sidewalk.
Oh, sidewalk. The sidewalk on the crosswalk. The crosswalk on Columbia Street. Thank you. Thank you for that correction. All right. And so we did some research, and based on my conversations with the police chief and our public works crew, and looking at the MUTCD code, it's not feasible to put a crosswalk there without engineering studies being done and some extensive research. It's not recommended per the MUTCD to put a midsection block crosswalk in, and Kalama, was it Kalama that took theirs out? Kelso took theirs out because of accidents that have occurred, and as you see, a crosswalk doesn't prevent anybody from getting hit. So what we did as part of Public Works to start a process to make it a safer area on that road if people do choose to cross there is we installed speed limit signs, because there were no speed limit signs on Columbia. We also painted the curb across to give them better visibility, and then also we painted, so on one side of Columbia where the wheelchair ramp is, which was actually installed for them to be able to have access to their vehicles. I found that out. It wasn't for a crossing, so they didn't have to go all the way to the corner and take their strollers or walkers or wheelchairs all the way down the road. It was just for them to get to their cars for the overflow. We actually painted a stall on each side so they have better visibility to be able to see out to get to their cars, and then block the parking from across the way so people have better visibility. And then we flagged the speed limit signs, just so you know. That's kind of what we worked on.
Ms. Coleman, this is in addition to the change in parking that was made shortly after your arrival.
That's
here.
correct. That's
so
correct.
we
Which
reduced parking in the area already.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct. And then last but not least, I wanted to bring to council's attention that we sent out obstruction by vegetation letters to the community. We had Public Works peruse the entire city and look for vegetation, because we have sometimes a problem when we use the street sweeper, sweeping up the streets, or people have complained about crosswalks being blocked by vegetation, overgrowth. So we perused the entire city and located areas where we couldn't get either there with the street sweeper, or the branches were too low for a vehicle to park, or vegetation was blocking the sidewalk, and we sent letters out to approximately 70 residents asking them to please clean up their vegetation by December 7th, and told them that if they wouldn't do that, that we would go out and do it ourselves, and then we'd charge them for it. And I want to share with council and the community that if somebody has a health issue, a financial issue, so on and so forth, they can always contact Public Works, and we can work with them and figure something out for them to rectify the situation. But we want to make sure that the citizens have a safe place to park and not scratch their cars and walk, etc., and for the ADA accessibility. So those letters went out, and we asked for them to clean up by December 7th. So that's just what I wanted to touch on, because those might be some hot issues that come to the council members while you're out in the community.
Questions for Ms. Coleman on that condensed report from Public Works this evening? Mr. Fredericks.
Two things. One, I appreciate you giving us some proactive information, so in case we do get folks that come to us, many times we don't get the prior, I should say.
Right.
We have not gotten this kind of communication. It's extremely helpful knowing that, hey, someone might come to you and have a discussion, so I appreciate that. Second thing, I've noticed that Garrick Park, I noticed that there's activity late at night going on in the park. Is there, how does that work? I thought the parks were closed at 10. I have not gone there. I went there once during the day, but I really didn't look at the signage. Is it closed at 10? How does that work?
It's supposed to be the gate is supposed to be locked by, so we kind of have a shared locking mechanism with the Northwest Steelheaders, the police, and ourselves. We all kind of take turns locking it up. It should be locked. Doesn't prevent anybody from walking in there, but because it is posted that it's after hours, that does give our police right to go in and enforce that. Or do we use the Clark County? I think we can. Can we not? Since it's our
We can't.
park?
We can't because it's in Clark County, so, yeah.
But we can notify.
But the officers go in and kick people out on a regular basis.
Okay.
Well, I won't say regular, but when they're there.
But it is posted.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
All right. Ms. Coleman, you brought up graffiti, and I've noticed, and Chief, you might be able to answer this as well. I know that we've all been kind of scattered to the wind a little bit here and there. You were gone. But I did notice that our tagger is back
Yeah.
and hit the city pretty hard. Do we have any information on who that is, or have we had a lot of property owners that have called in for a report at all?
I'm not aware of,
Okay.
of any leads on who the
Okay.
potential suspect is, but yeah, we're on it.
Okay. Have you had many calls from property owners?
They may have while I was gone.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Okay. I just noticed that we had a lull there for a moment, and all of a sudden it went rampant again. With it appears to be the same symbol everywhere.
Because the weather's nice.
Yeah. Till Wednesday. All right. Thank you. All right. Moved on to the section of the agenda for consent items.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Humber, seconded by Councilmember Chapman. Will the clerk please take the vote?
Councilmember Benjamin,
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman,
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza,
Aye.
Councilmember Humbert. Aye. Councilmember Graham,
Aye.
Councilmember Frederick.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Consent items have been passed. Before we go into this?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, it's 7:46. We'll take a 4-minute break. Jeez. Sorry, Mr. Frederick's question was quite lengthy. All right, moving on. Are we ready, Mrs. Rep? Okay. Action item C, ordinance number 1420, 2019 property tax levy 101% final reading, and resolution number 707, percentage increase for 2019 property tax levy.
Move adoption of ordinance number 1420.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Frederick, seconded by Councilmember Chapman. Councilmember Fredericks.
I have no discussion, and I should have just realized after I looked down that this is a two-part question. It should be adoption of ordinance number 1420 and resolution number 707. So the motion should be amended as such.
You want them separated? Is that what you just heard?
No. And one is fine. I just only read one of them.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay, gotcha.
They're both related, like required by the county home.
Okay.
I have no discussion. I had my discussion last week.
Councilmember Chapman.
Yeah, we all discussed this lengthy last week, so we need to get this done soon.
Further discussion?
Share too.
All right. Seeing no further discussion, will the clerk please take the vote on action item C?
Councilmember Rounds?
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks?
Aye.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza?
Nope.
Councilmember Chapman?
Aye.
Councilmember Benjamin?
Aye.
Councilmember Humbert?
Aye.
It's got to be that chair. Moving on to action item D, ordinance number 1420, 2019 final budget. First reading with exception of Fund 107.
Move adoption of ordinance number 1424 with the exception of Fund 107, the lodging tax excluded.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, seconded by Councilmember Plaza. Councilmember Fredericks.
Yes, I wrote down 3 words that described how I felt about the budget process prior to Mayor Finn's arrival. When you have a budget that you've received that is sometimes $300,000 to $500,000 out of whack, and typically in the red, I have acrimonious, contentious, and frustrating. Was how I kind of described the process, and I know that Mr. Benjamin has been through one of those with me. I know Mrs. Humbert has been through several of those with me. I can say that it is a lot easier getting a budget that is balanced to start from and then having the discussion. And it has been a cleaner process, I think, not only for members of the council, but also members of the public who want to get involved in that process, which, as you can see, is very few. But I just am appreciative of the process that under the leadership of Mayor Finn and the leadership of Mr. Boyce and all of the department heads, I appreciate receiving a budget that is balanced to work from. That's all I have.
Mr. Plaza.
No comment.
Further discussion?
I just want to say thank you for what you do. It is, it's no more like rain, all those things that happen at budget time. I appreciate it.
Mr. Boyce and the team take that on. Thank you. Will the clerk please take the vote on ordinance number 1424 with the exception of Fund 107?
Councilmember Humbert?
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds?
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza?
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks?
Aye.
Councilmember Benjamin?
Aye.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman?
Aye.
Ordinance number 1424 with exception of Fund 107 has passed. Are we doing 107 as well? Okay, go ahead. Can you do
Move
like...
to approve the lodging tax funding for calendar year 2019, Fund 107.
And for those members, just vote abstain.
Seconded.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, seconded by Councilmember Chapman. Councilmember Fredericks.
I have no comment.
Councilmember Chapman.
Yeah, this is just a formality to make sure everybody's safe and not getting in trouble and stuff, so that's all.
Further discussion? All right, motion on the floor is to approve Fund 107 Lodging Tax Committee recommendation. Will the clerk please take the vote?
Councilmember Benjamin?
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza?
Aye.
Councilmember Graham?
Abstain.
Councilmember Chapman?
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks?
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds?
Abstain.
Councilmember Humbert?
Aye.
All right. Are they required? 5-0, 2 abstained. Action item D.1, Fund 107 passes. I gave it a number. I had to give it something. All right. A number and a letter. Yes, I had to give it action. Action item E, ordinance number 1425, public utility tax on water, sewer, garbage, recycling, amending Woodland Municipal Code 5.20, first reading.
Move adoption of ordinance number 1425.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, seconded by Councilmember Benjamin. Councilmember Fredericks.
I will defer.
Councilmember Benjamin.
This will provide operating funds that will allow us to keep the doors open and operate in a functional way.
Further discussion. Mr. Plaza.
I know it's probably going to pass, but this is the third tax increase that has been passed on the city since the beginning of the year. We had the garbage tax that was pushed on us by our recycling or garbage people. Just did a property tax increase, and now we're going to hit the citizens with another utility tax. And I said it last week, so I'm not going to harp on it, but it just seems there's got to be another way to keep the doors open and the lights on than slamming our citizens with a tax increase every time something doesn't work out. That's all.
All right. Further? Mr. Fredericks. You just say you had.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Fredericks.
Certainly no one, I, for one, do not take this easy. I know we had council, we did have a garbage rate increase at the beginning of this year. That was passed on to us by contract with the vendor that processes or handles all of our garbage as pursuant to the agreement. The property tax levy that was passed this evening will have an overall decrease in the amount of the property tax that will be collected by the ratepayers of the city. So it's an overall rate of, I believe, negative 1762 on 1,000, roughly within that. So that is a decrease. When we talk about the other things that are going on right now, our expenditures, one of the things that we've asked for and continually ask for is help from the state when it comes to collective bargaining. We have not had much help from the state as it relates to collective bargaining, and it has created higher costs for wages that unfortunately are rising faster than the revenue that is allotted to us. So we have a choice. The choice is we can cut, and I'm certainly willing to listen to any proposal that finds meaningful ways to cut the budget and not cut the level of service that we provide. We have, I'll say this, we have no money in our road tax, our street fund to cover basic maintenance. We have no money in the parks fund, and the ending fund balance, there's nothing there. So I don't know where you're going to cut. I've gone through the budget for the last 5-10 years, and it concerns me from a standpoint that we're not paying our way as other cities do. And I'm not saying that what other cities do means anything to us, but we have very real expenditures here that we have to pay for. We have rising costs associated with labor, rising costs associated with our fire contract, reduced revenue as it relates to the gambling. We're having to take $200,000 out of the general reserves to fund day-to-day operations of the city. We are not we are not meeting the basic needs as it stands today. And that concerns me from providing police, providing some of the services that you can expect to receive in other cities. We have to plan accordingly now to be able to pay for those and have money set aside, because we are not able to set anything aside for a rainy day. So these are real issues that are faced. I don't take this lightly. I understand that this vote tonight will impact some of the most vulnerable in our community. So I certainly don't take it easy that this is something that we have to do. But I'm all ears for an alternative solution that will work. So I would ask that the council adopt ordinance number 1425.
Mrs. Rounds.
I have a question. If we do pass this tax, and we would get enough businesses in the community to provide the city with the revenue that it needs, is that something that we could repeal?
Absolutely. Yes. All right, seeing nothing else, will the clerk please take the vote on action item E, ordinance number 1427, public utility tax on water, sewer, garbage, and recycling, first reading.
Councilmember Humbert?
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza?
No.
Councilmember Benjamin?
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds?
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman?
Aye.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks?
Aye.
All right, action item E passes, ordinance number 1425, 6-1. Moving on to action item F, declare emergency and authorize roof repair at Public Works Shop with bid award to roof toppers.
Move to approve?
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Humberg, seconded by Councilmember Plaza. Councilmember Humberg.
The roof started leaking. We need to take care of it before it causes more issues. Roof toppers are able to do this for us.
Councilmember Plaza.
Basically the same. I've had situations in my personal life where you have a leaking roof, and if you don't take care of it, it's just going to be an even more costly headache than it is already. So this is definitely something that needs to be taken care of.
Further discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Fredericks.
I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong page. Bear with me for just 1 second. This doesn't match the, it is included, thank you. It's in
You're
here.
welcome.
I just couldn't find it. We're good.
I made
You knew
sure
what I
that
was looking
I
for,
know
too.
exactly what you were looking for.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a good team. Further discussion? All right, will the clerk please take the vote on action item F, emergency roof repair?
Councilmember Humbert?
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks?
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman?
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds?
Aye.
Councilmember Benjamin?
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza?
Aye.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
All right, action item E passes. Moving on to action item G, authorize mayor to sign change order 3 with Gray and Osborne for design of Scott Hill Booster Pump Station.
Move to approve?
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Humberg, seconded by Councilmember Chapman. Councilmember Humberg.
We had started Gray and Osborne doing this some time ago, and then because of things happening, we put it on hold, and this will allow us to start this up again so that we can get that pump moving up to Scott Hill Park.
Councilmember Chapman.
I concur. This is something we definitely got to do, or we're going to be way behind the curve on our stuff. So let's keep ahead of the maintenance and stuff.
Further discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please take the vote on action item G?
Councilmember Fredericks?
Aye.
Councilmember Humbert?
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds?
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza?
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman?
Aye.
Councilmember Benjamin?
Aye.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Action item G passes. The time is now 8:07. Moving into a workshop, Clark County Fire and Rescue Annexation Proposal. We have Chief Knorr and Chief Jackson with us this evening. And it looks like Chief Knorr is taking the lead.
We also have our board chair, Stanley Chun, with us this evening.
All right. Welcome.
In the audience. So as you guys are aware, Clark County Fire and Rescue is a special services district. We provide fire, EMS, and hazmat response to 125 square miles, which includes unincorporated Clark County as well as the city of Woodland through contract, and the cities of La Center and Ridgefield that have annexed into the district. I do have a small handout for you here that if you'd like to follow along and give to council members, and I'll give one. So there has been a trend across the country and across the state of Washington for consolidation of fire and rescue services. It's very expensive for each little entity to have a fire department. Each one would have a fire chief and probably a training officer, perhaps a fire marshal and an assistant chief, and then all of that administrative cost basically takes people out of the seats responding to your emergencies in the fire engines. So by having consolidation of multiple entities coming together and basically pooling their resources to provide that service, we're able to save money on administrative costs, we're able to save money on logistics costs, and it provides more opportunity to put people on the fire engines again responding to you. Our entity here is actually made up of multiple fire departments. So what you see of Clark County Fire and Rescue is a merger over the years of District 11, District 12, District 14, which is north of La Center, District 2, which was northwest of La Center, just across the river here. The city of La Center and the city of Ridgefield all have merged together to become part of that district. So we have a long-term contract with the city of Woodland that's been in place since 2013 and was renewed last year for a long-term, in 2017 for a long-term. But I wanted to present to you what it would take to annex into the district and what some of those advantages may be for you. So basically by Washington law, by RCWs, it lays it out pretty well that if the city wanted to annex into a district, the council would have an ordinance to that effect, and the Board of Commissioners at the fire district would make a resolution accepting that petition basically to annex into the district. At that point, we hold a vote of the people, so the citizens of Woodland would vote on it, and the citizens of Clark County Fire and Rescue would vote on it. And if it passes in both areas, then we make notification to the officials in the counties, and in the following year, it would become effective. To be really clear on that, it has to occur prior to March 1st to be effective the following year. There's one election cycle next year. I don't want to confuse things too much. There's one election prior to March 1st next year. It's in February. It's too soon to make anything happen. So some of the suggestions that I'll make later on talk about a vote later in the year, which would make it effective in 2021. So as I said, we have an elected board. We have 6 commissioners that are elected district-wide for those positions. We will attrition down to 5. One of the reasons we have a slightly higher number than 5 right now is because when Clark County Fire District 2 annexed in or merged into the district 2 years ago, the 3 commissioners from that entity became our commissioners also. So we will eventually attrition to 5 commissioners. One of the advantages of annexation that a lot of people see across the state when they do that is that people have more direct representation on the board. So right now, as a contract entity, you're our point of contact, and obviously we work well with you, and if you had a concern, we would take care of those concerns. We've been very receptive to that, but citizens of Woodland right now cannot run for or be elected to the Board of Commissioners for the fire district, since we serve you through a contract through the city, through City Council. We have a contract rate with you, which is $1.50 per thousand. That was the rate that we were charging our citizens. If you recall, 2 years ago, the rate that we charged because of property value increases went down, and we reduced that amount that we were charging you at that time to be the same as the district. And I do apologize for this. It's very late in your budgeting process, but because of a state conference and some other things that came up, we couldn't get it on our agenda till just as our last meeting, but the Board of Commissioners voted to, so because of valuation increases in the CCFR area, our rate is dropping to $1.44 per thousand. And the commissioners voted to extend that rate to the city of Woodland. It's not a huge reduction for you, but it'd be about a $15,000 reduction in the contract cost this next year by charging that same rate.
Thank you. It's a workshop. I can jump in. Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
As I told you 2 years ago, Mayor, I feel like we want to make sure we have a good relationship. We're not here trying to gouge anybody, but I have to charge the same rate to you that we charged everybody else in the district. Could not go lower than that, but I also don't feel like it's proper to take advantage and go, well, we have a contract for this, so we're going to charge this. To me, my interest is providing a very high level of service, the highest level of service we can provide for the income we have to all of the citizens that we are responsible for serving.
Thank you.
With that, the citizens, if you were to annex into the district, they would pay that same rate as everyone else in the district. You would essentially become part of the district, the same as Ridgefield has become part of the district, La Center has become part of the district, Woodland would become part of the district. The contract would no longer exist. You would be a part of the entity. And as our rates go up and down with valuations, the rates of the citizens of Woodland would go up and down with those valuations. The city's no longer responsible for any provision of fire services. It's all done by the district. It allows us some improved long-range forecasting to look at what we want to do and how we want to move assets around to be able to provide the best level of service to the district. And one of the things I look at long-term here is that Woodland is our busiest area right now, and it is a little bit remote from the other parts of the district. So people drive call volumes, businesses drive call volumes. I want to see Woodland grow. I want to see people be very successful here, but I also know that'll drive our call volume as we go. And so at some point, we look at where do you put a second unit, when do you staff up something else, and I look at the remoteness out here from a lot of the other resources, and how do we get people out here quickly to be able to serve. So as we build out the fire station, one of the things that you looked at when we built the plans out for the original station when it's fully complete would be big enough to house multiple crews if necessary. Basically, for us, it comes down to a planning issue and just being able to look at what we're doing long term and making sure that we're able to provide those high levels of service for you. It's been a good partnership. Our folks love working here. They're very active in the community. I can't give you specific numbers. We did a coat drive to give coats and blankets to Woodland Action Committee or Community Action, as well as the school district program. I don't know if anybody brought a coat to ride in the fire engine last Saturday, but we were over here at Walmart being part of that. So we have a lot of our folks live here in town. We're happy to be here, and we'd like to just continue to build that relationship and extend it up. If for some reason someone got into it and wanted to get out, there are provisions in the RCW that says after 3 years of being annexed in, a city could withdraw from a district by a vote of the people. So if something were to come along, it is reversible. It's in state statutes. I have to tell you that I'm not aware of anybody that's done that yet in the state of Washington. I know that there was some issues in Thurston County in the city of Lacey that needed to get worked out, and they worked it all out, and they continue to be part of that district. That was about 10 years ago. So generally, everybody has a pretty good relationship moving forward in that regard. Any questions about how it works or why it may be a good idea?
Of course.
Mr. Fredericks.
2 questions.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about Woodland residents serving as fire commissioners, has there been any discussion on a proposal of the makeup of that board and what that looks like, and how do you determine how that would look? If indeed, I don't know if it goes by area of service. How does that work?
It does not. They are elected at large, and boards in Washington for fire districts are generally 3-person or 5-person boards. we're a little bit over that right now because Fire District 2 merged in. Their commissioners became part of the board, and through attrition in the election in 2019, we will attrition down to 5. But they're elected at large. So you could have 5 people on the Board of Commissioners from the city of Woodland for the whole district. As it lays out right now, we have 2 of the 6 board members, one lives, actually I take this back. They all live in unincorporated Clark County right now. One person lives immediately adjacent to the city of Ridgefield. 3 of our members live right across the river here. Another gentleman in the south end of the district. Our district actually starts at 179th Avenue at the south end, goes to 132nd Avenue on the east side, and to exit 22 up here on the north end.
So as it stands now, this would be direct representation versus if there's a concern or an issue with the fire department, they have to plead their case through us. We have to plead our case with you. That's
Correct.
the current process.
Correct.
Okay. Second question, have we reviewed from the city standpoint of the financial impact and how that relates to our budget? If this were to pass, what would that look like from a budgeting standpoint?
Well, it would be, we haven't done a formal study, but it would be a benefit. Basically, the city would no longer have to balance out any increases to our fire contract, the fire service. The taxpayers would be paying that tax directly to the district. So it would insulate the city from increased expenditures for the fire service. So it would be a benefit to the city financially.
So, go ahead.
Would it be a benefit to the citizens?
Well, I think the citizens would continue to pay the $1.50 per thousand or whatever rate it fluctuates
Well, they're
to.
paying that already, so, right?
Right, so,
Okay.
so in essence, they're paying it already. If we annex to the fire district, that money would just go directly to the fire district as opposed to the city. The benefit to the city is that's an expense for our general fund. We would be insulated from coming up with the revenue to cover that expense. The fire district charges, up to $1.50 per thousand, where the city is limited to that 1% increase, which usually exceeds. That 1% is usually less than what the $1.50 per thousand would be. So.
And how does this, as it relates to fire impact fees and the city collecting fire impact fees, how does that relate to the district?
Well, fire impact fees can only be used for fire service. So most likely if we continue to collect those fire impact fees, we would be using those to, we'd most likely be sending those to the fire district to provide fire service to the citizens of Woodland.
And currently, those impact fees are paying for our new fire station, our debt service, and they would continue to until it was paid for. I'm assuming that would be part of the conversation.
So the other question is, right now, our 2019 levy rate is estimated at $1.85. So the question is the $1.85 less the $1.50, or is the $1.50 on top of it?
So the way the statute works is that you would subtract out whatever, the maximum levy a city can have is $3.60 per thousand minus the $1.50 for the fire district and minus whatever library levy you may have. And that would be what your new maximum levy is,
Right.
what that is. So it's, the maximum levy is higher than where you are right now. So it would be, I guess it gives city council probably some room to work with other things if they want, but that's working with your citizens to make sure they're happy with what's going on here in the city.
Just so the council's aware of that.
Yes, that's back.
Complicated.
Well, and that's what I'm hoping that we could, at the finance level, we could get through some of the complication, because the question that you raised is a very valid question. If it's $1.86 and we subtract $1.50, well, let's do the math on that. I'm not sure that yeah, I'm not sure what that does to us from a property tax collection standpoint and how that impacts other things that we do. From the way I look at this, and even prior to this proposal this evening, it seems to me like a no-brainer. I'm having a difficult time finding something that, how is this a bad deal? But I'd really like to understand the financial component on how it impacts, because I'll be clear, there's been a few surprises when we have, on the contract, with the amount that it has increased, and I certainly appreciate the board taking the cut by to $1.44, which I think I appreciate that. But there have been some surprises there, and so I'd just like to clearly understand the financial component a little better.
One of the components of that is that if we want to change our levy, we go to the voters of the district and they vote for a levy increase, or they can vote to deny us the levy increase. One of the reasons why it went up a little more this year is because last year the voters of the district voted a 5-year or 6-year levy at $1.50 per thousand, a maximum increase of 106% each year. So some places don't put that in. I put that as a safeguard for the citizens. Say, hey, look, if valuations go way up here, we don't want to be collecting way up here. Okay, so 106% max, but up to $1.50. Because valuations in Clark County went up 10 to 14% in the areas that we serve, that's where it dropped that 150 down to 144. So we hit the 6%. That's why that hits you equally as hard here is that valuations in Cowlitz County also went up a big chunk, but the city can only collect 101%. And so that's why that eats more of your general fund.
Another thing that I would be interested in reading is how it would be listed on the ballot. Because if it's not listed carefully, you're going, in my mind, to confuse folks to think that they're going to pay an additional $1.50 tax.
Yes.
And if you're not careful on how that is worded, that can be very tricky, because that's what people will assume.
And that has been the difficulty that several entities have ran into before, is just being real clear. So one of the things we'd want to do is first of all, if we were to pick a date next year, the dates I would recommend are either the August primary or the November general. Cowlitz County divides the cost of as you guys are very aware, they divide the actual cost of an election across all the entities there. So the idea is during those two votes, there would be more people on the ballot, either running for office or in the primary or in the general. And that spreads the cost to more entities out there, so bring the cost down to both the district and the city for that expense there, but also to get a good representation of the citizens. What do they want? Those tend to be your larger turnout votes anyhow. So, but we would start, and the dates that are on the second page there were just minimum dates of how soon we'd get out there and start doing some public education on it. If my goal would be to start 12 to 14 weeks early. At a minimum, we'd need 8 weeks to get enough public hearings, open houses, forums in the city as well as in the district to make everybody understand what the advantage is. In 2014, the members of the citizens of Woodland voted for an RFA that would have essentially, it's about the same as an annexation. It's just a slightly different form of governance, and the citizens voted for it. There was a couple pockets in the district that voted it down, but actually was being supported here in the city.
I think it would be, I know Chief Jackson has some history of where our service level was at and how it's improved. I know the level of service has improved immensely under the contract. I know it costs a little bit more, but again, we don't have issues with people showing up at an accident and not being able to actually assist, which was the case prior. So I think all of this makes sense, and I think that, in my mind, I think November 5th probably makes the most sense, given that the cost should be a reduced cost, because it's a fairly, you've got, I know just in the city of Woodland, then we'll have 3 council members and the mayor's seat up, and then all the other cities as well surrounding us. So I think from an election expense, I think that one probably makes the most sense, and certainly gives a plenty enough time for us to do what we need to do to make a recommendation, and also plenty of time for the district to get out and push to have this completed.
I know I've said it before, but I do like to point out that we recognize the challenge of serving the Woodland area because of its geographic remoteness. We put a paramedic here every day possible because of the distance to get the ambulances from Vancouver or Longview here. If we have a call that requires firefighters to ride in on an ambulance to the hospital, then one of our other rigs will move up to this area because it's the most densely populated. It's got the most businesses there. It's got a great risk, and so we're always moving our chess pieces. But Woodland is one of our primary places we look out for. I also have to say that we look out for the rest of the district too. But I look at it. How do we make sure we're providing that level of service? And we do a good job of keeping this place staffed. It has either 2 or 3 career people on the rig every day, as well as often 1 or 2 volunteers. They love to run out of the station because it provides a good variety of call types. With that, I would ask does Chief Jackson or Commissioner Chun have anything to add? Or
I think a couple things with the funding. The plan has been that the city would decrease the tax. I think what that does long term is it just opens up some opportunity to where if the city did want to increase their tax rate in the future for whatever service that be, there's space to do that. There's capacity to do that. It's not an obligation, but it certainly creates that capacity. I think one of the other common misunderstandings has been about equipment and capital assets, and it's one of those, well, if the city bought those and they annex into the district, then is the city giving up their stuff to the district? And I think to understand that correctly is to understand that it's the taxpayers' stuff. The taxpayers in Woodland bought fire engines and a fire station, and if the district becomes the folks to provide that service, it's still the citizens' stuff. If you were to ask the district to purchase the stuff, you're in essence asking taxpayers to pay for it twice. You ask them to buy it, you're asking them to consider consolidation with the district, and then use their tax dollars to pay themselves back for stuff that they purchased once already. So that's one of the misunderstandings too is about equipment. And as the chief talked about, there is an opportunity where if a city chose to leave a district, the statute spells out how assets are divided. So it's not the city would join and the city would pull out of a district and they would lose their stuff. They get an amount equivalent to what percentage of the tax base of the district they would own. So that's one of the concerns I've heard expressed and one of the things out there. I think to put it in context that it's taxpayer-funded stuff for fire protection in Woodland, and that would continue. Similar to the fire impact fees, those have to be spent specifically on capital assets and specifically on the city where they're collected. So if the city collects fire impact fees, those have to be spent on assets and fire protection things that directly serve the city of Woodland and not other parts of the district.
Thank you for clarifying that. Commissioner?
Before my time as a Clark II commissioner, I was a volunteer for the city of Woodland Fire Department for 9 years, starting in 2002. I've seen this department, previous department here, this fledgling department coming from 1 career staff to 3 full-time firefighters, chief and secretary, and then moving forward to where we're at today. And at that $1.50 a thousand, I haven't read the numbers, but I'm positive the $1.50 a thousand paid doesn't pay for the crews that are here with the equipment, the time, maintenance, all this vehicles. It just isn't there. The level of service today is so far removed from where we were. As I said before, I was previously a District 2 commissioner. This last year, the merger of the districts, the board shuffling into the attrition, I had to rerun for the new 5-member council board. And I reelected, beating out another CCFO, a long-standing person. So allowing people to inside the city of Woodland that want to be involved in local government is a big deal. Don't be concerned about your people having to run against or at large against a larger, more populated section of the district. I'm from District 2, and we are by far the smallest entity that has merged in CCCon. So, it's certainly possible. People are not at a disadvantage. Any questions? Those that may not have the history, Fire District 2 is essentially considered rural Woodland on the Clark County side. They historically contracted with Woodland before the contractor was the SNAP system. Clark County was completely separate. Clark 2 worked hand in hand with the city of Woodland trying to contract with them to provide service. Move towards this consolidation, and you kind of took the first step to annexing together. Certainly a long background, but certainly associate kind of affiliate with Woodland would more be the cities. There aren't records of District 2 and the city people that call when the beginning of that contract with the city was.
Mr. Fredericks?
Just a question. Mr. Jackson, you raised a couple of concerns that have been brought up. One of the other concerns that's been brought up is if the annexation occurs, then how does it work from a policy standpoint from what the City of Council has set policy on as it relates to fire? And I'll give you an example, fire inspections. So if does the city have to have an ordinance in place? Can the district run roughshod over the city to say, hey, this is a district now, we don't really need your permission, we'll do it because we're part of the district, and that board would determine that? How does that work?
He'll give you a much smoother answer, but I can tell you that cities in Washington have jurisdiction over their own,
Okay.
their own business. And so as it relates to, the cities in Washington are required to provide fire inspections. And so, for example, we now are doing fire inspections for Woodland, Ridgefield, and La Center, but that's because the city chose us to do that. Without that, you could have somebody else do it. You could hire somebody from within to do it, but we're not going to come in and say, you have to do this. You're going to do it our way. There are certain things that are prescribed for a city to be responsible for and control how that's done. So just as you see Chief Jackson here, multiple times a month, I have other chiefs that I work closely with that are assigned to La Center, assigned to Ridgefield. We attend meetings. What are your needs? How are things going? What do you want? In a service level type of thing, and just making sure that everybody's getting met there. But the state law says you as a city have to do it. You get to choose how you get it done.
Right. Okay. No, I appreciate that explanation, and I would say I would echo the commissioner's statement that the level of service has just been far and away. It was a no-brainer for us to do that. I mean, the response times are so much faster, the level of service is so much greater, and it's one of the best decisions I think the city could have ever made. So, and I've been very appreciative of the partnership.
Okay, thank you. So if we, any other questions?
Questions for Chief Noir, Jackson, or the Commissioner?
So is this on I guess from a process standpoint, is this something that can be the information, the financial information? Can that piece be brought back to the Finance Committee, and so we can bring this back again to the council to proceed with setting a date, so we can communicate that sooner rather than later? Is that possible?
It is.
To get it on the January, maybe the January, does that work for the district?
Yes. Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Chief. All right. It's 8:37. We're back in regular session.
Move to adjourn.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 8:37. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
You're still on the record.
Oh, we're still on the record. Mr. Fredericks and Ms. Humber had mentioned something about the budget, how wonderful it has been getting a balanced budget. And I just want to recognize that Mr. Boyce and the executive staff, I appreciate you so much for all the hard work, because I know that before it gets there, there's a lot of conversation that happens. And it's some disappointed faces sometimes. So I'm glad that we can have this conversation and go forward and bring council a better conversation, even though it is still a difficult conversation. I think that it gets into the best of both of how it's really behaving or functioning instead of trying to figure out where we can have something. We need that.
So, are we on the same page on that? I think so. My thought is that sort of like jurisdictions must deal with this every year in terms of how they call it.
Good to see you.
This is the time plan. This is
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving.
So you're right. The question is, how do, because in Cook County, they call it their docket process.